Today's daf we're going to be learning is Bava Metzia daf Pe Aleph. For my trip, I'm going to thank Mindy and Eric Heft for sponsoring, for hosting the Shiur at their house. It was great to meet people. It was great to see learners from around the world, or from whatever. For me, it's around the world, the other side. So it was really great seeing people there. We're going to get started with our daf now. So we have, we're going to start off with 3 different versions of the same sugya. So it's a little confusing, but I'm going to try to organize it for you so it won't be so confusing. We're basically going to compare, and I'll be careful with what I say because each version is going to compare a little bit differently, but some sort of inference from our Mishnah against another Mishnah, either with a qualification on that Mishnah or maybe without the qualification on the Mishnah. That sounds a little confusing, but we're going to get started and we'll see. We're going to start from the bottom of Pei Amud Bet. If you remember, we're in the middle of this Mishnah. This Mishnah kind of jumps from topic to topic. It's got a few different topics mixed in about levels of shmira, of different cases where one is obligated for watching someone else's item in different situations. The first situation is the one we're starting with, which is let's just use a case of a car. It's kind of the easiest situation. You bring your car to the garage and you leave it there and they fix your car. And then the question is, so now there's different stages. There's the stage where it's done, but they haven't yet told you that your car is ready. So you don't even know you're supposed to pick it up yet. And the question is now, while they're watching while your car is there and they're fixing your car, they're a shomer sachar, which means, remember, they're obligated for theft, for it getting lost. Okay, maybe the car would be hard to get lost, but it could get stolen. Because they're getting paid money to watch your car, to basically take care of your car, they're getting paid. Therefore, they're considered a shomer sachar, even though they're not exactly a shomer, but one of the responsibilities of having the car in their garage is that they're liable for the car. Now, if let's say they just finish the work, but don't tell you, that's one stage. Then there's 2 other possibilities. There's 3 possibilities of what could happen. And possibly your level of shmira, let's say you're the owner of, okay, let's call you the owner of the garage. I brought my car to your garage. Either you finish the job, so you're no longer now you're still supposed to get paid, but you're done with the job. So perhaps the level changes at that point. Perhaps the level changes when you call me and say the car is ready. But there might be a difference if you say the car is ready and come pay me whenever you want, or you say the car is ready and when you pay me, I'll give you the car. If you say when you pay me, you'll release the car, then obviously you're still benefiting from the fact that I'm paying you, and therefore you're considered still a shomer sachar. But if you say, and this is what the Mishnah ruled, if you say, come get your car and pay me, which means pay me whenever you want, it means that you're not holding me, I'm not beholden to pay you before I get my car back, which means that you're not benefiting anymore from keeping my car, because you'll give me the car back even if I don't pay. So there's no more benefit, and if there's no more benefit, you're dropped down to a shomer chinam level. That's what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah did not discuss the case of what if you're just done with your job and you didn't tell me. So the question is, can we infer, the beginning thing they're going to say is we can infer from our Mishnah, since it didn't bring that case, then, because it's an earlier stage before you call me and tell me the car is ready, then it must be that you retain the same responsibility. And in the first version, that's what we're going to assume. And then we're going to have that be contradicted by this Mishnah and the statement of Rav Chisda, which is quoted by Rav from Bar Papa on that Mishnah. So without more introduction, we're going to get started. Starting at the bottom of Pei Amud Bet, about 5-6 lines from the bottom. So that was the case. I call you, you call me up and you say, take your car, Michelle, and bring me money whenever you want. You drop down a level to a shomer chinam because you're no longer benefiting from keeping my car. Tanan hatam, it says on daf tzadichet in the Mishnah, in our Masechet, Amar lo shoel shalach v'shilcha v'meita chayav. If the shoel, let's just think, right? I want to borrow something. No, you want to borrow something. And you say, send it with my messenger. As soon as you say, send it with my messenger, we learned your shaliach is just like you, your agent. Therefore, as soon as I give it to your agent, you become responsible for onus, for damages, any kind of damages, because you're a shoel. Shoel, remember, gets all the benefits, and therefore all the responsibility is on the shomer, on the shoel. So if the animal dies for unknown reasons, you're responsible at that point, even though it never even got to you, but it got to your shomer. And likewise, when you return it, now what does that mean? It means if the person who lent it to you says, listen, return it with my friend so-and-so, and you return it with my friend, well, then I'm responsible. You're no longer responsible. But what does that seem to imply? That, in other words, I assume responsibility when I send my shaliach to pick up the object. Otherwise, if you're borrowing my object, you're going to be responsible until I get it or my shaliach gets it. Now comes Rav from Bar Papa and says in the name of Rav Chisda, Amar Rav from Bar Papa, Amar Rav Chisda, Lo shanu ela shechzira b'toch yimei sheilata. It's only if you borrowed it for a month. You said, can I borrow your car for a month? You borrowed it for a month and then returned it after 3 weeks. You're going to assume responsibility. But what? If you borrowed it for a month, once that month is over, you're not allowed to use my car because you only borrowed it for a month. So, okay, maybe a car's a little tricky because to return it, you're going to have to drive it. Okay, but let's put that issue aside. Let's say it was an object you could return without having to use it while you return it. So if you're using it beyond the time of the sheila, you're not allowed to use it. Well, if you're not allowed to use it, then you're no longer a borrower. You know, what's the whole issue? When you're borrowing something, you only have a level of responsibility of a borrower because you can use it. If you can't use it anymore, then you're no longer responsible like a shoel. Now, we're going to see later that you drop a level and you drop to a shomer sachar. Okay, but you're not responsible for onus. That's the big issue here. So now they're going to say, Mativ Rav Nachman Bar Papa, that's going to be the point that's going to contradict. Because Mativ Rav Nachman Bar Papa, B'chulan Shamru, Tolat Shalach V'Aveimot, shomer chinam. What did we say? As soon as you call me up and say, go get your car and bring me money, you drop down a level. But Hagimartiv, here comes the inference we talked about before. If you had just finished the job, but not told me that you finished the job, you remain a shomer sachar because it didn't say that case. And that's an earlier stage. So you only drop when you call me, but not, right? You don't drop a level when you just finish the job. Now, isn't that the same as when the time of borrowing ends, which we said you drop a level automatically, even though you haven't returned the item? Here, you finish the job. At that point, you should no longer be a shomer sachar, according to what we just, right? So now, according to the inference, you would be a shomer sachar. So that's the contradiction. To which the Gemara says, no, don't infer that. Okay, who said that's an inference from our Mishna? Lo, the inference should be something else. The case in the Mishna was, you call me and say, go pick up your item, and whenever you want, you can pay me. That's when you drop a level. But which case would you not drop a level? If you did the reverse, not gemartiv, where the job was just finished. Forget that inference. That's not the inference. What it wanted to tell you is, if you said the reversed order and you said, listen, Michelle, pay me and then pick up your car. In other words, first pay me. I'm not releasing your car till you pay me. Then you will remain a shomer sachar because you're getting paid for having my car. You're getting benefit from still keeping my car because that's how you're holding me to pay you the money. Aval gemarti. Okay, so therefore, and then gemarti, we would say would be the same thing as our Mishnah, which means you already drop a level, which means it matches what Rav from Bar Papa said in the name of Rav Chisda, which is the shoel is no longer responsible for onus once the time period ended. Likewise here, you fixed my car. As soon as you're done, you're no longer, right? You're no longer responsible on the same level. But then the Gemara says, wait a minute, if that's the case, then why didn't the Mishnah mention that case? That's an earlier stage. That would have been a bigger chidush. Aval gemartiv mai shomer chinam. You're going to say if you just finished the job, you already drop a level. If so, if the Mishnah brings this case and says, if you said, come get the car and give me money whenever you want, you'll be a shomer chinam. Nishmi inan gemartiv. V'koshkein tolet shalach. Then you should have, the Mishnah should have given the earlier stage. Even if you just finished the job without even telling me, you already dropped to a shomer chinam. And then it would be obvious that if you told me and said, I don't even care if you give me the money whenever you want. Again, it's not that you don't care. It's just, you're not going to hold my car in order for me to give you the money, right? Until I give you the money. So you could have said gemartiv and you would have inferred the other case. So it doesn't make sense to say that gemartiv is the same. And that wasn't the case they brought. Because why bring this case instead of that case? That would be, as we say, the bigger, unique halakha. Right? And then it would be obvious, kol shekain, tolas shalach. the Tola Shalach case. To which the Gemara says no. They specifically wanted to use this case Tola Shalach for a reason. And that's why you could still say Tola Shalach v'avei and also Gemartiv, both cases. You finished the job, or you finished and you called me and told me, go get your car and pay me whenever you want. Both those cases you're a shomer chinam, but they specifically wanted to tell you this case, and why is that? So it's Tola Shalach itzricha. You needed this case specifically to be the one mentioned because you would have thought shomer chinam nami lo have. You might have thought once you call me and say, pick up your car, and right, imagine the scenario. I think we talked about this when I mentioned when we learned this before, which is maybe not, I don't remember. But if I say, if you call me and say your car is ready, and let's say I don't pick it up for another month and it gets stolen from your garage, maybe you're not liable at all, right? Or maybe, right, stolen actually you won't be liable for. But let's say, right, maybe you have no level of responsibility whatsoever. Okay, maybe you even drop, maybe, right? Because if you say, why do you leave it in my musach for so long? Right? Why do you leave it in my garage? Sorry, I'm using Hebrew. Why do you leave it in my garage for so long? Right? Maybe you have no level of responsibility at that point. And that's what the Mishna wanted to tell you. No, you're still a shomer chinam. We kept looking at it from the element of you're no longer a shomer sachar. Here would be the case. Let's say it gets stolen, right? Shomer chinam, remember? What does a shomer chinam need to do if it gets stolen? They're not responsible, but they need to take an oath that it was stolen. Maybe you don't need to take an oath. Maybe you say, what do you mean? You left your car in my garage for a month. Now you want me to go to court and take an oath that it was stolen? No, it was stolen. I'm not responsible anymore. I don't even need to take an oath. So, kamashmalan, that's why the Mishna brought you that case and said, if you called me up and said, take your car and pay me money whenever you want, you're not, right? You're not totally exempt. You're still going to be a shomer chinam. And that's why they needed to say that case. But again, Gemartiv would be the same. Okay, you'd still be responsible like a shomer chinam, not a shomer sachar, and then there's no contradiction at all. Second version of this sugya, Ika de Amri. Some people say, I'm Rav Nachman bar Papa, that Rav Nachman, now notice the characters. We're going to have Rav Papa a lot today. We started with Rav bar Papa's statement on that Mishnah about the shoel. Then now we're going to have Rav Nachman bar Papa, the brother of Rav bar Papa, saying, Af ananami tanina. I'm going to prove what my brother quoted in the name of Rav Chisda. I'm going to prove it from this Mishnah. And this is going to do the reverse. This is like the reverse order of the previous sugya. In the previous sugya, first we inferred Gemartiv is not the same. Then we said, no, Gemartiv is the same. This sugya is going to assume Gemartiv is the same as Tola Shalach v'avei ma'od. Come get your item and bring me money whenever you want. Or Gemartiv, they're going to assume they're both the same as we assumed in the conclusion of the sugya before. And therefore, use it as a proof for the Mishnah there and what Rav bar Papa said, which basically, again, amounted to as soon as your borrowing time period is done, you drop a level. Likewise, as soon as the work in the garage is done, you drop a level in your level of responsibility. So here he comes and says, we can prove it from our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah says, my love, is it not, is it not no different if you finish the job, whether you finish the job or you called and said that you're done. Either which way, both cases, you aren't, again, you're not getting any benefit anymore from having my car. The only time you would is if you said, pay me the money and I'll release your car. But anything short of that, you finish your job, you're done. Which is just like the borrower. The borrower's time period is done, even though the borrower hasn't returned it. They're no longer responsible for the unexpected damages, the onus. To which the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Now we're going back to the first thing we thought in the first sugya, which is no, Tola Shalach shani. No, because you said, come get your car, that's what drops you a level. But if you just finish the job without letting me know, well, you're not going to drop a level in terms of your level of shmira. You're still going to be a shomer sachar, in which case it can't be used as a proof. So again, the first time we thought our Mishnah contradicts, and the inference from our Mishnah contradicts, then we said, no, you can infer otherwise, and then it doesn't contradict. The second time we did the reverse. We said, oh, the Mishnah proves what Rav bar Papa quoted in the name of Rav Chisda, and then because we can infer this, and then we said, no, maybe you infer the opposite, and then it's not a proof. The third version is slightly different. In both cases, when we brought the other Mishnah, we brought it together with what Rav Bar Papa said in the name of Rav Chisda. In this sugya, we're not going to bring that just yet. It's only going to come at the end. So here goes. Huna bar Mereimar kamei de Ravina, Rame matnitina hadade. Huna bar Mereimar comes before Ravina and says these two Mishnayot contradict each other. Why? He says, Tnan, it says in our Mishnah, Kulan Shamru Tola Shalchava Ma'ot Shomer chinam, Vihu Adin Legamarti. This is like the second sugya, where we start off assuming that even if you just finish the job, you already drop a level of shmira. Even though it said, you called me and told me, it would be the same if you just finished. Urimin. And that contradicts the Mishnah, because the Mishnah in Daf Tzadichet says, Amar lo shoel shalach b'shelcha v'meita chayav, v'chein b'sha'a shemachzira. Now, without Rav Bar Papa, this sounds like a shoel is always responsible until the shoel returns, a borrower is responsible until the borrower returns it either to the person who lent it or to the person who lent its messenger. But anything short of that, even if, right, sounds like, even if the time period for the sheila ended, no matter what, the shoel, the borrower, is always responsible, even for onus damages. And that contradicts our Mishnah, which sounds like you finish the job, you're done. You don't have that at the same level, you drop a level of responsibility. Mishna, in order to resolve the contradiction, they bring in Rav Bar Papa, who said, Amar Rav Bar Papa, Amar Rav Chisda, Lo shanu ela shechzir b'toch yimei sheilata, sheilata, aval achar yimei sheilata patul. So he came and said, oh, wait a minute, I'm qualifying that Mishnah, and that will resolve all the problems. Because that Mishnah says, oh, that's only if you returned it early. But if the time for sheila was over, you were done borrowing it, you're not allowed to use it anymore, then you're no longer benefiting, then you're no longer going to be a shoel anymore. And that fits perfectly with, oh, you finished the job on my car, you're no longer benefiting from having it, and therefore you're already no longer responsible. Again, you're responsible, but you drop a level of responsibility. So in the end, we had 3 sugyot. Every suggestion we started with, we rejected in the end. So whether we brought it as, right, either, again, sugya number 1, we brought our Mishnah as a contradiction to what Rav Bar Papa quoted in the name of Rav Chisda on the other Mishnah. And then we resolved it by saying we don't infer that, we infer the opposite. Then we brought it as a proof because we inferred the end, right? And then we went in reverse order and said, no, maybe that's not the inference, maybe you infer the opposite. And in the third sugya, we ignored Rav Bar Papa in the beginning. We just took the 2 Mishnayot and they contradict each other, the simple reading, and then again, the simple reading depending on how you infer, but using that inference of Gemarti. And then we resolved it by bringing in, this time we didn't switch the inference, we just took Rav Bar Papa's qualification of the other Mishnah, and that resolved our problem. Okay, that was a little confusing because it's taking, but again, it just took all the same sources and rearranged them. It's almost like a puzzle, it could go this way, it could go that way, it could go different ways. Now we're going to start with a question on what we said, which I already kind of told you this, but the Gemara is going to ask it now as a question. In that sugya in Daf Tzadichet, with the shoel, when the shoel, the time is up, according to Rav Chisda, the shoel, the borrower, is no longer responsible at all, or no longer responsible as a borrower, but just drops a level to a shomer sachar, right? So again, that would mean if it got lost or stolen, they would still be liable. So that's our question. Patur mishoel v'chayav kishomer sachar. Is it just that they're not liable for the onus damages, the unexpected damages, but they're still liable for like a shomer sachar, like a paid worker? Or perhaps not even a shomer sachar anymore. Ameimar mistabra patur mishol v'chayav kishomer sachar. Ameimar says it's much more logical to say, right, I borrowed something, I haven't returned it yet, what, I'm going to not be responsible at all? That seems crazy. You must be a shomer sachar, and why is that? Because the borrower enjoyed the object until now, even though now they can't enjoy it anymore, the time is up. But for that benefit they got, because remember, the shoel really benefits. They don't pay anything, and they get full use of the object. So that's what we call kol hana'ah shelo. On account of that, mehanahava, they benefit the owner by saying, I'm going to assume at least a lower level of responsibility, but I am going to assume responsibility like a paid worker until I get the object back to you. And here's a tiny kavateta Ameimar. We're going to have a story which you could kind of imagine. It's a little bit funny to think about, but here's a braita that's going to support what we just said. Halokech kelim mibeit ha'uman l'shagran lebeit chamiv. Hey, we have an engaged couple, and the fiance, the male fiance, wants to bring gifts to the bride's family. So he goes to a store, but he doesn't. What's the problem? And this is why I think it's funny. He doesn't know their taste very well, and he's worried that whatever he might buy them, they might say, thank you, but no, thank you. That's not what we want. So he goes to the store and he asks the storekeeper, can I sort of borrow this item, take it to my father-in-law's house, see if they like it, or my in-law's house, see if they like it. It says Beit Chamiv in Hebrew, which is father-in-law, but take it to the in-laws, see if they like it. If they like it, great. Okay, that's what we're going to read right now. He took Kelim vessels, mi Beit Uman, from the silversmith or whatever kind of smith it was, l'shagran lebeit Chamiv, to send to the in-laws' house. Va'amar lo, and he says to the storekeeper, if they accept this gift, I'll pay you for it. If not, well, if they don't like it, at least I'll get brownie points for sending them a gift, even if they don't like the gift. So I'll pay you a lower amount for whatever benefit I was able to get, right? We'll put a number on that. I at least look good that I was sending a gift, even if it happens it wasn't their taste. Okay. What happened to this item? Now, what if something happens? This isn't a particular case that happened. It's just a scenario that the braita says, if this were to happen, and onus happened to it on the way, well, that's a borrower, right? The fiance borrowed the item to bring it. Bahalicha chayav. Obviously, they're going to be chayav. But bechazira patur mipnei shu kenosei sachar. But on the way back, if it's onus, the guy's exempt, because at that point, the borrowing time period is over. He doesn't need them anymore. The person doesn't want them. So now he's just bringing them back to the store owner. At that point, he's exempt. But what does it say? Why are you exempt? This is the key word. Because he's a shomer, sachar. So what do you see here? At that point, so if it were to get stolen, let's say on the way home, then he would be liable. The point is, it drops one level. It doesn't mean you're not responsible at all. Now we're going to see a story that seems very similar, although we're going to see it's not exactly, and we're going to have to figure out why it's different. How Gavra did this? So this is an actual case. There was a person, we're going to see a few actual cases today. He sold a donkey to his friend. Now the person who bought it said, I'm bringing it to the following city. Okay, let's say he was living in some village. He says, I'm going to bring this to Jerusalem, to the shuk. If I can sell it there, great. And if not, I'm going to return it to you. Sounds like the exact same scenario. You're borrowing something temporarily with the hope to sell it, and as opposed to give it to a gift, either which way, right? So he went there, you couldn't sell it. So now he's bringing it back. Now, according to the previous story, once you're bringing it back, you're going to drop a level, right? So instead of being a borrower and liable for onus, you're only a shomer sachar. You're liable for geneva v'aveda, stealing or theft, stealing or losing it. But what happened? On the way back, some onus happened and the animal died. Ata the kamei de Rav Nachman chayve comes before Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says you're liable. To which etive Rava the Rav Nachman. Okay, some people say Rabba, some people say Rava, but they throw this question at Rav Nachman. They say, "What do you mean? We just learned this tannaitic source. What does it say there? But the son-in-law is going to be exempt on the way home. The fiance because he's like a paid worker, no longer a borrower at that point." Amar lei says, no, that's different. Why are these cases different? This person who's trying to sell the donkey on the way back is no different than on the way there. It's not like he brought a gift to someone, the person doesn't want it now, returning it. But my time, what's the reason? It's just logical. On the way back, if he found someone to buy it, would he sell it? Of course he would. So it's true he went to the shuk of Jerusalem to sell it, and now he's on his way home. But if he finds some random person on the street, the whole way he's going home, he's kind of looking for potential buyers, because in the end, that's why he bought this, so he could resell it. So therefore, even on the way back, this guy is considered as if he's on the way there. And that's why they're not comparable cases. That was the whole first sugya. Again, just as a review, maybe we won't review at the end, we'll review it now. We had three different versions of, because we're really switching from topic to topic today, we have three different versions of how the case in our Mishna of taking someone's item, fixing it and then returning it. And the question is, at what point are you no longer responsible? What point you drop law? How that compares with the sugya above the Mishna, above Metzia daf tzadichet, and either with or without the statement of Rav Chisda that was quoted by Rav Bar Papa. 3 different versions of how we reconcile those, or maybe not reconcile them. And then we wanted to know, well, in that case, do you lower to a shomer sachar? We said yes. You still are a shomer when you're returning this item, but you're a shomer sachar, not like a shoel. And then we brought a braita to support that. And then we brought some other story that seemed to contradict the braita, but it didn't really contradict. Now we're moving to the next topic for today. And this is a bit of a complicated topic. We're going to learn a lot more about it later. So we'll just kind of touch a little bit into it today, which is called shmira b'ba'alim. When it comes to the shoel in the Torah, it talks about the borrower, it says that in ba'alav imo you're patur. If the owner is with you, you're exempt. Now, the way the simple reading sounds like, if you borrow something and the owner happens to be in the room, okay, I borrow your phone and the phone breaks, some crazy thing happens and you happen to be right there, I'm exempt. But the way it's understood is not that way. The way it's understood is, let's say I go into a taxi cab and I hire this taxi driver to drive me somewhere. So I'm in a taxi. That person is working for me. And then while I'm in the taxi, either the taxi driver says, can you watch my phone for me? Or I say, can I borrow your phone? And then I borrow the phone of someone who's already working for me. Now, here's the tricky part. Because you're already working for me, I can't really be working for you. So let's say you're the taxi driver. So I am no longer, because the taxi driver is beholden to me because they're working for me, I can't really be beholden to them in terms of watching their item. So therefore, I'm exempt from, now in the Torah, it's about a shoel, but they apply this to all kinds of shomrim. That if that other person is working for you at the same time, then you're no longer responsible. And we're going to bring today a slew of things which seem to contradict that, and we're going to see how we deal with it. So the first thing is our Mishna. Our Mishna says, shmor li ve'shmor lecha shomer sachar. If I say, you watch my item and I'll watch your item, well, each one is benefiting from the other. So we're each considered, even though I'm not getting paid, I'm getting paid in the fact that on account of me watching your item, you're going to watch my item. And therefore, that's considered, I have the level of responsibility of a shomer sachar. But isn't this shmira b'ba'alim? You're doing something for me and I'm doing something for you. So each of us, right, one's working for the other at the same time as we're working for each other. So isn't that shmira b'ba'alim? So Amar Papa, da Amar Le, it must be a case. Okay, we didn't understand the case properly. It's not like you watch my item, I'll watch yours, but shmor li hayom ve'shmor lecha lemachal. I'll watch your item today and you'll watch my item tomorrow. In that case, there's no overlap. We're not working for each other at the same time. So that's okay. And in fact, Tanu Rabbanit, we're going to now see a braita, which gives a slew of cases like our Mishna, but more expanded. Shmor li ve'shmor lecha, that's the case we had in our Mishna. Hash'ileni v'ashilcha, lend me something and I'll lend you something. Shmor li v'ashilcha, watch for me something and I'll borrow something from you. Hash'ileni ve'shmor lecha, we have all the different permutations. I'll lend you something and you'll watch something for me. I'll lend you something, right, and I'll watch something for you. Kulam na'asu shomer sachar zelazeh. All of them are considered paid workers. V'amai shmira b'ba'alim. Again, aren't all these cases shmira b'ba'alim? To which Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa again comes in. Rav Papa appears all over this topic, and here are sons. The Amar le shmor li hayom ve'shmor lecha lemachal. So it must be in all those cases, it was that the two watchings or borrowing and watching and all that weren't happening at the same time. Now we're going to have a story. Hanu ahaluye. These are either people who sell ahal. Ahal could either be a spice, according to some interpretations, according to others, a cleansing agent. Either which way, that's what they did. It's not important to the story. Every day, one of them would bake for the other. They had a Torah nudis, we call it. I can't think of the word in English, but every day somebody else would bake for the group. That day, they said to one of them, "Ziel apelam, please bake for us. It's your day." Amar lahu, naturally mine. He said, a rotation, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word. Anyway, he said to them, naturally mine. I'll bake for you. You watch my cloak. So that would be shmira b'ba'alim, right? Because he's working for them, he's baking for them, and they're watching for him. Ada'ata pashu ba've'igniv. Until he came back with the baked bread. In the meanwhile, they were negligent. Okay, now this is a little different. shmira b'balim, we didn't talk about what if you're negligent. But right now, let's just assume shmira b'balim is even with negligence. They were negligent and ignu. So it was stolen, but it was stolen out of negligence. That's not regular stealing. So the king of our papa, he said, you're responsible. You lost his glima because, it got stolen because you were irresponsible. You have to pay. The rabbis come to our papa and said, what? Wait a minute. This is the case of negligence, but when he was working for them already. So if he was working for them, then they can't be responsible for his item. So our papa got really embarrassed, turned red in the face and said, I can't believe I made such a terrible mistake. But l'sofi gali milta, but in the end, papa, it turns out, was right because they found out later more details of the case. He wasn't actually baking the bread at the time that they lost it. What happened? He went to bake the bread, but decided to stop at a pub on the way home and was drinking beer. So he never actually started the work for them, which means it's not really shmira b'balim because they first were watching his item, and only after that did he go to bake the bread. So since the pshia happened beforehand, it's actually not a case of shmira b'balim, and therefore Rav Papa's original ruling was correct that they should be responsible. There's a bit of a problem with this because I kind of mentioned it before. Now this is, when you say shmira b'balim exempts you, does it mean you're exempt even if there's negligence? So there's a debate about this. So if you hold that even negligence when you were working, right, when someone else is working for you and then you watch their item, like the taxi driver, you watch the taxi driver's item, if you say that even pshia is exempt, then we get the story and why they said mishum hachi ichsib. That's why they kind of attacked Rav Papa with it and he was embarrassed, even though in the end he was right, but they're trying to figure out why he was even embarrassed in the first place. But according to the one who says that pshia b'balim, you're also going to be obligated. You were negligent. Of course you're going to be obligated. This in ba'alav imo, if the owner's with you, meaning if the owner was working for you, then that whole exemption is not true if you're truly negligent. Then why was Rav Papa embarrassed? It's not shmira b'balim. To which they say, okay, we must have gotten the details of the case wrong. We'd have to explain the details like this, okay, which often happens when stories are passed down. And lahu yom alav didei have. It wasn't actually that person's day to do it. But and they said, you know what? We know it's not your day, but can you bake for us today anyway? And he said to them, well, I'll bake for you under one stipulation. In other words, theoretically, you're supposed to pay me instead of, because it's not my day and I'm doing it anyway, instead of paying me, well, watch my cloak for me. Now, turning now to Amud Bet. Ada'ata, basically, he was getting paid for watching the item, but right, they were getting paid for watching the item by getting the bread baked for them. So ada'ata igniv, in the meanwhile, it gets stolen. Now notice what word is missing here. This is the important word. It doesn't say pashu, pshia. It wasn't negligence. It just happened to have gotten stolen. Now, in this case, why do we have to mention that it wasn't his day? Because they were paid workers. They were shomer sachar. They got paid for watching the item. If you're paid for watching the item, you're liable for geneva, for theft. Because before they were shomer chinam, they wouldn't have been liable for theft. So ada'ata atu l'kamei Rav Papa. They go before Rav Papa chayvinu. He said, okay, you guys were shomer sachar. You have to pay because you were doing this. You got paid by him doing the baking for you. So that would be shomer sachar, and you have to pay for the theft. Amrle Rabbanan Rav Papa hashmir b'balim. But the rabbi said to Rav Papa, but wait, no, he was working for them by baking the bread, and then they were working for him. That would be called shmira b'balim. He should be exempt. And again, it's not pshia in this case. So why did you make him responsible? In which case, pasif, he gets embarrassed. But again, the story ends in the same way. But again, what happened was in the end, it wasn't shmira b'balim because he was drinking the beer at the time. He hadn't even started the baking, which means that when they were doing the watching because they were going to get paid by him. It wasn't called shmira b'balim because he hadn't started the baking yet. That's what we're going to learn with shmira b'balim. It has to be that when you're doing the shmira, they already started working for you, like the taxi ride, where first you're in the taxi, the taxi driver was already working for you, and then you started watching their item. that's when you'll be exempt. But if you first, the taxi driver, before you even got in the taxi, asked you to watch that, and then they decided to drive you somewhere and you paid them, that would be a different story. So that's what happened here. Even though it's interesting, the arrangement was made before, but that doesn't matter because he hadn't actually started the work, so therefore he wasn't considered their worker. Another story, and it almost sounds like a joke the way it starts off. There were two people, they were walking on a path. That's why it sounds like a bit of a joke. One was tall, one was short. Okay, this isn't really so important for the details of the story, although possibly, but I can think of one minor reason why, but we'll get to it later. But it seems like they're just trying to distinguish, so we have a way to remember who was who. So there's a tall guy and a short guy. The tall one was riding on a donkey, and had a linen garment. Gutsa, the short one, was wearing a wool garment, and was walking by foot. So we have one guy on foot wearing a wool garment, short guy. We have a tall guy with a linen garment riding on a donkey. Why is this important? Well, kimate lenara, they got to a river. Now the short guy is carrying this wool cloak. Think what's going to happen when it gets in the water. It's going to get very heavily bogged down. And maybe that's why it's relevant that he's short, because the cloak will probably be dragging on the floor, although I don't know. Anyway, and he's walking by foot, so he has a problem. What does he do? He doesn't want the garment to get ruined or get waterlogged, so he basically throws it onto the guy's donkey. He takes the light garment, the linen one, because it's much better to walk in the water with a linen garment. It won't get so full of water and heavy. It'll dry off very quickly. And he uses that. So now it's unclear whether this was with the agreement of the donkey rider, the tall guy, or not. We're going to assume right now that, the donkey rider agreed. I'll watch your wool garment so it doesn't get ruined in the water. I'll give you my linen garment. I'll loan it to you. And then you'll be responsible, obviously, as a borrower because you're borrowing my garment. And of course, what happens? The water washes away the linen garment. I guess it was so light that it got washed away in the water. And they go before Rabba. Rabba makes them liable. You were a shoel, onus. Again, and it's kind of interesting that all these cases, this seems to happen where a rabbi paskins, and then the rabbis say, what happened here? Did you forget? Amai, she'ela bebalim he. This is she'ela bebalim because, the donkey rider was also working for the guy who was the one riding on the donkey, the tall guy, was working for the short guy, and then the short guy was borrowing his item because he was watching the item. So he was working, the tall guy was watching the wool item, and then the short guy was watching the tall guy's item. That's shmira b'bali. Ikasif, again, Rava gets embarrassed, humiliated, just like Rav Papa did when they asked him the same question. But just like in the previous story, L'Sofi Gali Milta, and they revealed the details of the story, Tibelodate Shakle Ubelodate Otve. The short guy never asked permission. He just threw the wool garment on the guy's donkey and grabbed the linen garment without asking permission, without anything. Well, that was kind of a self-proclaimed show as actually a thief, He was a thief, and therefore he's liable to return the garment as for laws of theft, not shmira. It's not shmira b'balim. The other guy never even agreed to watch his item. So again, it's just funny that we have these stories where a rabbi paskins, the rabbis all jump and say, what happened? That's shmira b'balim. The rabbi assumes, oh yeah, I made a huge mistake. Turns out when they found out the details of the case, it wasn't even a case of shmira b'balim. Another story. A guy rented a donkey to his friend. He says, but listen, when you take my donkey, just don't go to the city through Nahar Pakod because there's water there and my donkey will slip and die. Could hurt himself. Go the way through Naresh because there's water there. Well, the guy doesn't listen. He goes to Nahar Pakod. And the donkey dies. When he comes back, he says to the guy, now he could lie, He could say, what do you mean? I went by Naresh. But instead he says, listen, it's true. I went in Nahar Pakod. You told me not to go. but there wasn't any water there. So that's why I thought it was okay to go. So basically, I shouldn't be liable to pay because I didn't listen to you, but you told me why I shouldn't go because there's water. And I saw there wasn't any water, so I went anyway. Amarle Rava, Mali l'shaker. This is a case of a Mali l'shaker. What does that mean? It means that we believe the guy because if they wanted to lie, they could have had a better lie, which is, right? Why would he say, I went by Nahar Pakod and there was no water? He should have just said, I took the way through Narash. Ibai Amarle, Anaborcha Dinarish Asli. He could have just said, I went through Narash. The fact that he's telling us, I didn't listen to you, I went through Nahar Pakod, but there was no water. We can believe him that there was no water because if he really wanted to lie, he would have had a better lie. Abai doesn't like this. And Abai says, Amarle, Abai, Mali l'shakar b'mkom edim lo amrina. You can't use a Mali l'shakar when there's witnesses. What kind of witnesses? Nobody saw him go by Nahar Pakod, so what are we talking about? Well, this is what we call an anansade. Anansade means we can all bear witness because it's just obvious. Everybody knows that Nahar Pakod always has water. So it's very hard to believe this person when he said that Nahar Pakod doesn't have water. Now, maybe there's a small chance that one day, a year, I don't know, there's no water in Nahar Pakod. But we don't accept this Mali l'shakar argument when we have witnesses against. And witnesses is the fact that everybody knows that there's always water in Nahar Pakod is enough to basically weaken this Mali l'shakar, and Abai doesn't accept his testimony, even though Rava thinks his testimony can be accepted. So Rava would basically say you're obligated, and Abai would say you're not. Next sugya. Shmor li v'amarlo hanach lefanai shomer chinam. So actually, let's just review this sugya before we move on to the next. As I said, we're doing distinct topics, so we'll review as we go on. So this was all about shmor li v'shmor lecha shomer sachar, that line. You watch for me, I'll watch for you. That was that line in the Mishna. And from there, we got into the whole issue of shmira b'balim. And isn't that shmira b'balim? And then we said it must be they were each watching on different days where they weren't working at the same time that they were watching the other ones, right? You didn't have one person working for someone while the other was watching their item. But if it was concurrent, it would be an issue. And we brought all sorts of stories, highlighted that issue. Okay, now we're going to move to the next case. Shmor li v'amar lo hanach lefanai shomer chinam. The Mishnah rules, this was the Mishnah from yesterday. If you say, watch my item, and I say, put it down in front of me, as soon as you put it down in front of me, I become a shomer, even though I haven't done Mashiach or anything else. That was an acceptance of shmira. Our question is going to be, so Rav Chisda is first going to say, Amar lo hanach lefanecha. But if I say to you, put it down in front of you, then what am I basically saying? No, thank you. I'm not interested in being your shomer. I don't want to watch this item. Eino lo shomer chinam v'lo shomer sachar. I assume no level of responsibility. So now they have a question. So we have, put it in front of me, I'm accepting it. Put it in front of you, I'm not accepting it. What if I just say, put it down? Without saying in front of you, in front of me, what do I mean? Classic Gemara question of, what did you mean when you said that? So hanach stam amai, what would be the case? They say, let's learn it from the Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? Tashma. Shmor li v'amar lo hanach lefanai shomer chinam. Sounds like you have to say, put it in front of me. But anything short of that, you won't be a shomer. So hastama v'lo klum. It sounds like you're not a shomer. But they say, wait a minute. But then take what Rav Chisda said, and you can infer the opposite. Adraba mida'amar Rav Chisda hanach lefanai. Hanach lefanecha. Rav Chisda said, if you say though, put it in front of you, meaning I don't want to be your shomer. Deino lo shomer chinam v'lo shomer sachar. It sounds like hastama. But if you just said put it down, it sounds like you'd be a shomer chinam at least. Have it, right? You'd be a shomer chinam because you're not getting paid in this case. So they say, okay, we can't infer either which way, because from the Mishnah you can infer one way, and from the Divrei Rav Chisda you can infer the opposite, and we're stuck. We don't really know. To which the Gemara suggests, Lema Ketana. Why don't we suggest that this is a machloket tanaim? And you might remember that we had this in Bava Kamma. Said there was a Mishnah in Bava Kamma, Daf Mem Zayin, Imichnis Bereshut Bal Chatzer Chayav. There were a few cases there. If I bring my fruits into your field, or I bring an animal into your field, and I ask you, can I put it in your field? And then you say yes. So Tanakama said, and then let's say your animal gores my animal, or your animal eats my food that I put down. Now you told me I could put it there. So what did you mean? If not, I'll watch it for you. So according to Tanakama, Baal Chatzer Chayat. Again, what's the situation? I asked you, can I put it down? And you said yes. You can leave it in my courtyard. So once you said you can leave it in my courtyard, you become a shomer. You're basically saying I accept. That's like Hana. Rebbe Omer, Rebbe says, no, in all those cases that the Mishnah had mentioned there, you're not liable until you said, I'll watch it. Because When I asked you to put it down, maybe I just wanted a place to put my animal to rest or put my fruits down. I want to get it off my back and I just want to put it in your courtyard. But you said yes. You didn't mean, yes, I'll watch it. You said, yes, I'll let you use this space. But of course, you're responsible for it, Michelle. I'm not going to take responsibility. So we have this machloket. Is that not the same thing as put it down? Put it down could mean put it down and I'll watch it. Put it down could mean here's permission to put it down. But these cases are not really the same. And that's what the Gemara is going to say. Because we're going to basically say, we're going to see it from the perspective of the rabbis and why they would say something different by us. And then we're going to see it from the perspective of Rabbi and say why he would say something different by us. The rabbi said, when you told me put it in your courtyard, well, a courtyard is a protected space. So when you say yes, what you mean is yes, and it'll be protected with everything else in my courtyard. And that was an acceptance of protection. But when we're standing in the shuk, right? So here, let's just keep reading for a minute. When you said bring it in, the interlock kamar, you meant bring it in, put it down, and I'll protect it with everything else that's protected in my courtyard. But if I tell you put it down when we're in a public space in the shuk, in the marketplace, I could easily be meaning put it down and you're in charge of it because it's not a protected space at all. Inami, alternatively, from the perspective of Rebbe, you could say that Rebbe would say specifically in the chatzir it doesn't work, but in the shuk it does. And why is that? Because what could you be meaning when you say, yeah, you could put it down? In order for me to put it down into your courtyard, I can't just put my stuff in your courtyard unless you give me permission to. So when you gave me permission, you were giving me permission to put it down in your courtyard, but not that you were going to watch it. When you gave me permission to bring it in, you said, yeah, I'll let you use my space, but of course you're responsible for it. But in the shuk, but when I said put it down in the shuk, I obviously meant put it down and I'll watch it, because what else could it mean? If I said put it down, I'll let you put it down here, but I'm not watching it. Well, I don't need to give you permission to put something down in the public space. So by me saying put it down must be, the only thing it could possibly mean is I'll accept responsibility for it. So there we have two opposing approaches here about how we first thought maybe it's machloket tanaim, and then we say no, it's not really connected. It's very different. One's in the courtyard, one's in the shuk, and that could have totally different and opposite ramifications. Okay, we're going to stop here for today, and we'll start with this next sugya tomorrow because it's a whole topic in and of itself, and it kind of continues. So we'll stop here about hoveo ala mashkon shomer sachar. If you loan someone money and they give you an item for collateral, you become a shomer sachar. We're going to try to see maybe this doesn't match Rabbi Eliezer, and could it fit in with Rabbi Eliezer or not? We'll get to that tomorrow. So this last section we did was basically this issue of hanach lefanai versus hanach lefanecha. That's clear, but what about hanach stam? What does that mean? And we tried to say maybe it's machloket tanaim, but we're unsuccessful. And with that, we finish today's daf. Wishing everyone a good week and hoping for good news. Shavuot tov.